welcome back to the Audacious podcast, the show that encourages people how to live differently and think differently. I'm Talon Bulmy, your host of the show, and we have just hit the 20th episode on the podcast. Let's go! I just want to take some time to thank y'all for listening and just supporting the episode in the way that y'all have. It's just been a pleasure and a blessing for me to be able to do this podcast for as long as I have, just here at college, and continuing to see it grow, see the topics that we talk about touch people and resonate with them. And I just want to thank y'all for being supportive, listening, and taking the time out of your way to listen to these discussions, support what we're putting out there. It really means a lot to me. My ultimate hope for this podcast is that people listening to it will take something away from it that really resonates with their life, and that something will just click for them as they're listening to these discussions about topics that you don't usually hear about, whether it's relating to, love, how to stay committed, how to keep communion with God on a practical level. I just really hope that God has been able to single things out for y'all that listen to this podcast, and maybe some things clicked that didn't click before, and that practically you've been able to apply it to your life and just live a more fulfilling life, because that's the ultimate goal of this podcast, is to equip y'all to live better lives, more fulfilling, more joyful, and ultimately the life that God has designed for you. So this is going to be a pretty quick episode. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what's going on with the podcast, what's going to be happening with it. So we are about to enter season 3 of the podcast, actually. Even though I'm not using season numbers, I sort of see the first 5 episodes as season 1. I see the next 15 up until this one as season 2. So starting next episode, which will be released on Monday, 10 a.m., make sure not to miss it, we are going to be starting season 3. And as part of season 3, we will be entering a sort of mini-series, 5-episode mini-series that I'm going to call the Help and Healing series. So this is going to be a little bit of a departure from what we usually talk about on the podcast. Still going to be the same theme, how do we practically live a more fulfilling life? But these are going to be topics that are a little bit, let's say, tougher to talk about, a little bit more personal, a little bit more closer to home with some people. So we're going to be talking about things such as anxiety, depression, self-forgiveness, and struggles with that, and how to practically heal from these things and continue to lift them up to the Lord and still live a fulfilling life even when we're struggling with them. So these conversations, they're going to be a bit deeper than I think what we've done before on this podcast. But really excited just to be able to dive into these topics, because this is all stuff that I'm sure everybody struggles with, but almost nobody wants to talk about it, because there's a lot of vulnerability that needs to come into play. There's a lot of humility that needs to come into play. And ultimately, people are just scared to talk about these things and scared to deal with them. So really hoping that these next couple episodes will shed some light just on these hard topics, and that people will be able to walk out feeling encouraged, feeling like they can take away something practically to help their walk in overcoming these challenges, especially with this new semester and going into it. I think this is going to be really, really helpful for a lot of people. So I'm super excited for it. Again, that first episode of this new mini series is going to be coming out next Monday at 10 a.m. So make sure that you do not miss it, okay? And again, thank y'all so much for listening to this podcast. It's just been my joy to be able to put these out and serve the Lord in this way. And so I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.